Whoa, space alien. Hey, I think he's friendly. Dear Tim and Moby, how did the Columbian Exchange affect life in the Americas and around the world? From Shanna. That's a great question, and historians are still working out the answers. Here's what we know. Before Christopher Columbus's arrival in 1492, there were anywhere between 50 and 100 million people living in the Americas. These pre-Columbian civilizations were diverse and highly complex. In the South, there were cities whose size and architecture rivaled the great European capitals. In the North, some people enjoyed more political freedom than in Europe's most democratic nations. But after Columbus's voyage, everything began to change. Within a few hundred years, Europeans laid claim to the Americas and much of the rest of the world. Native populations shrank to a tiny fraction of their original size. Those who were left found themselves greatly outnumbered, living in a land they no longer controlled. How did such advanced populous societies lose so much so quickly? And how did Europe rise to global dominance within such a short period? According to many historians, the answers to both questions can be found in the Columbian Exchange. That was the centuries-long swap of cultures, people, ideas, plants, animals, and even diseases that began in 1492. Before that date, Europe and the Americas might as well have been on different planets thanks to the vast ocean separating them. But suddenly, there were ships traveling back and forth, carrying people, crops, and livestock to places they had never been before. Life changed almost immediately for the native people, as countries like Spain, Portugal, England, and France quickly set up colonies throughout the New World. That's true, the Europeans had guns, horses, and advanced military tactics. But that doesn't explain how they were able to take over so quickly. As it turns out, their deadliest weapons were microscopic. Diseases like smallpox, the flu, malaria, and yellow fever were carried over the ocean by their European hosts. Native people had no natural defenses against these new germs. They got sick by the millions in what is now called the Great Dying. Smallpox was especially devastating, wiping out entire civilizations. Wherever contact was made, native people died off, making it that much easier for Europeans to gain a foothold. Yeah, and from Mexico to South America, many natives were enslaved and forced to mine for gold and silver. The Spanish and Portuguese sent these metals by the boatload back to Europe. But they also brought back edible treasures. Europeans had never seen crops like potatoes, corn, and cassava before. These high-energy foods grew well in tough conditions, helping people survive famines and live longer. As a result, populations in Europe and Africa swelled at the same time that they were plummeting in the Americas. This helped fuel the migration of millions of people to the New World. Meanwhile, newly discovered cash crops like tobacco, vanilla, and cocoa enriched Europe even more. Oh, no, stuff moved in the other direction too. Religion was one of the first exports to the New World. Missionaries converted thousands of native people to Christianity, occasionally by force. But since it was illegal to enslave Christians, Native Americans often converted on their own just to keep themselves free. That's true. Native Americans didn't just passively react to the changes going on all around them. In North America, the Plains Indians took advantage of European horses, radically altering their own culture. That kind of adaptation was repeated throughout the Americas with metal cookware, guns, and wheeled vehicles. Native people also benefited from newly introduced crops, like wheat. Oh yeah, the Europeans brought tons of new crops to the Americas, including wheat, rice, oranges, bananas, apples, and coffee. The Caribbean islands had ideal growing conditions for sugarcane, a hugely profitable cash crop. This was the beginning of the world's ongoing obsession with sugar. But besides the health effects, there was an ugly side to the sugar trade. Like most cash crops, it relied on slave labor. Thousands of Indians worked and died in the cruelest conditions. When their populations declined, Africans were brought in as replacement workers. This was the beginning of the Atlantic slave trade, in which more than 12 million Africans were sold into slavery. You're right, in many ways, it is a terrible history, and it's natural to get sad or even angry when you hear about it. But it's important to remember that this story isn't over. The Columbian Exchange permanently connected the two hemispheres through trade. Today, we benefit more than ever from these trade lines. Raw materials and finished products are whisked around the world in every direction, connecting people on every continent. Right, that's a key point too. Native Americans didn't die out. Millions of people with Indian ancestry still live among us. Of these, the majority have mixed ethnicities with ancestors from Europe, Africa, or both. Many of them identify with multiple cultures and are proud of their mixed heritage. Yeah, maybe we can learn from their example. Even if the history of the Columbian Exchange is troubling, it's part of who we are. Our music, foods, languages, even our attitudes about the world all have some roots in this blending of worlds. Oh man, how are we going to clean all this? Oh. Well, darn.